Hello, my name's Tony Ridley, and once again welcome to another Crisis Leadership and Management Training and Education tutorial. In previous sessions we've spoken about the basics and the fundamentals of crisis management, the definition of crisis management leadership, and the keys to success, and certainly the essence of success. In this session what we're going to briefly touch upon is management versus leadership and the fundamental requirements of managing or participating in a crisis management team. So we spoke about crisis management and leadership as being defined as an unfair advantage for those who are competitive in nature. It's the speed, it's the distance, the endurance, it's the having the map, the navigation, the forethought to arrive at the same destination faster, more efficiently, and without less drag. Leadership is the direction, the guidance, the strategy, the outward thinking and the outward focused elements, whereas management is that studious response-based mechanism that follows along and dots the I's and crosses the T's and implements the plans and the procedures, whereas leadership is the key component that is lacking or fails most teams that fail. It's not a lack of procedure, it's not a lack of preparation, it's more often than not the lack of leadership, vision, guidance and direction that will steer the course and help everybody to either mitigate, evade or avoid all of the foreseeable or defined problems and obstacles along the way. When we talk about the teams themselves, the crisis management teams, and the reality is for all organizations is that in any structure, whether it be a handful of individuals in a small business all the way up to large multinationals with diverse departments and international boundaries and territories, is the essence comes down to the basics. So when we talk about sustainability, things of a basic nature such as sleep, rest, food, water, communication, the clarity, being able to stop and collect one's thoughts. Many organizations, particularly when faced with a large crisis or one that they're significantly ill prepared for, or they can identify early on that this is going to be something of monumental proportions, so to speak, is that they simply go too hard, too fast, and they commit all of their resources, they commit too much of their time, and in a very short period of time, in a matter of hours or even days, they simply have no reserves. They've got nothing left. And the reality is that crisis management is like wrestling a bear or a tiger. You rest when they rest. The reality is that there is no termed defined elements in which you can simply punch in, punch out on the clock and say, well, it's 4 p.m, that's the end of it, I'm going home. Particularly with significant crisis, and really is there any other kind, sustainability of the teams, being able to rest and recuperate and recover and all of those sorts of things needs to be the key start point for any organization, is determining and identifying and preparing for reserves as soon as the activation or the initiation of any potential crisis is identified. Next is the administration, the administrative components. Again, not having the basics. You know, I've seen so many plans and seen so many scenarios and run so many simulations where individuals just forget the basics. Not enough paper, no pens, no internet connection in the room, no one knows where or how to get lunch for 20 people. How do we get home? What do we do if the facility's closed and we can't access vehicles? How do we transport people? You know, the basics of administration beyond what is routine. Think the entire process through and be prepared for many contingencies. But once again, much the same as sustainability, is implementing, identifying or allocating these administrative processes as early as possible. If they're not held in continuous accessible reserves or resources, then you need to be able to activate them as soon as possible, not at the last minute. And the implementation of plans and decisions. The largest of organizations, the most prepared of organizations and individuals, it's a staggering amount, often forget or simply don't reference or discover in the heat of a crisis that their structure and their plans and their procedures are ill-conceived for such an event. So there's 600 pages, there's 9 layers of protection and security around getting to them. They're dusted off and they're reviewed once a year. They're archives. They're simply not accessible, and certainly in the speed of decision making required for most teams and organisations, is that unless you're able to reference it and you are referencing it, then it really has been, with the exception of compliance and for ticking the box of an audit, it has been a waste of time. It needs to be something that you can implement, you can reference, and you can make informed decisions from. And this comes down to the documentation process as well. It could, increasingly, it should be in an electronic format, it could be audio, it could be video. Exactly what are the resources that you have at hand, and are they going to be referenced, are they going to be of value, and are they going to be accessible under a variety of different circumstances in the event of said crisis. If the power goes out and everything's electronic, what do you do? So these are the realities of when it comes down to the basics, and nobody has all of the answers. Nobody knows everything in advance unless you've constructed the crisis yourself. It's about reviewing and adjusting. It's about lessons learned. It's about benchmarking. It should be adjusting and improving and tweaking the process. And this is why people often refer to the practice of medicine. It's an acknowledgement that it's not finite, it's not finished, and it's certainly not complete. And for a lifetime, many practitioners and physicians are learning and continually learning and practicing and implementing crisis management. With the medical profession, with flight training and simulation for pilots, should be looked in exactly the same manner. It's never finished, it's never perfect, and there's always something new and different, and circumstances and certainly people are changing. So just to recap, the basics is what will undermine most organisations. The absence of a leader or effective leadership, the simple elements of sustained performance from a targeted group or performance element, the administration components, useful resources that help with the decision-making process, continuing the documentation, not only in advance, but also for compliance and legal and so on. Are you able to maintain that veracity and that volume of record keeping during the events, and making sure that you review and adjust? Nobody's perfect. Nobody should plan for perfection. It's a constant, perpetual case of improvement and evolution. So once again, thanks very much for joining. That completes this session on the basics of crisis management. For any more information, and certainly a number of other videos on this subject, please visit www.crisismanagement.tony-ridley.com. Once again, thanks very much, and that's all for now. Bye.
Bye.